It's Thursday, it's the 22nd of October. Thanks for clicking on to the November outlook. Very interesting changes in the overall pattern, but with the same drivers in place, i.e. the El Nino and also the North Atlantic Oscillation, which has been firmly positive during the course of the summer. But it's been somewhat of a bookend summer. It has been a dry spring here across the UK, Ireland, and Western Europe, and indeed it was a cool, wet summer. And now we've got a cool but dry early part of autumn. So as we push into the month of November, the final month of meteorological autumn, where are we going to with regards to this weather pattern? We've had a northerly blocking high sitting over the northern part of Europe through much of October, leading to many parts of the UK seeing less than 20% normal precipitation for the month of October. But that is now starting to change. As we start to see the shift in the high, we're seeing the Atlantic becoming a lot more prevalent across the west of Europe. Areas of low pressure sweeping in to northwestern Europe off the Atlantic here overall. And we are seeing weather conditions as a response. But it has been a dry month of October. Like I say, it has also been a very wet month of October across central and southern parts of Europe. The very areas that, of course, were hot and dry during the summer months, the June through August period. So we're seeing somewhat of a flip taking place, despite the fact that we have the same drivers in place. And why would that be the case? It would be, of course, the seasonal variability in the pattern. The same drivers will do one thing at one time of the year and do another when we've got a different season in place. And of course, when you go from warm into the colder season, you see the change in the overall atmosphere, and in response we see the variation in precipitation distribution overall. This is the month of this is the period between the 22nd of August and the 20th of October. Very dry. It's turned very dry across the UK and Ireland after a very wet summer. And while it's been very dry and hot across the south central portion of the continent, it has turned very, very wet indeed. So very interesting to see that. It's been very interesting to see the mean ridge go from southern parts of the continent northwards as we've pushed through the last 3-month period. Why would that be the case? A lot of that is to do with the fact that we've got the shift in the sea surface temperatures, which therefore have a response to the atmosphere. Now this is the GFS total accumulated precipitation forecast over the next 10 days. One thing I want to point out is notice the continuation of the very wet conditions that we've seen in recent weeks. We'll continue to see that across the Mediterranean basin. But one thing I will say is the changes coming to Western Europe, France, UK, Ireland, even parts of Scandinavia. We're going to start to see wetter conditions take place. And 2009 was very similar. Dry spring, cool wet summer, and a cool dry start to the autumn season that year. And then, of course, it was record wet during the month of November. And I think that's where we're going to. Maybe not necessarily record wet with 12 inches falling at Sethwaite Farm in Cumbria, which was a UK record for 24-hour rainfall. But I think we are going to see a much wetter month of November overall. Notice here the lack of rainfall over central and northern parts of Europe. That's indicative of that high staying fairly strong. Very, very crucial sea surface temperature profile showing up. The El Nino, that's been strong, that's been well documented in recent weeks and months. The warmest, and this is very important, the warmest water is now showing signs of shifting westwards off South America towards the Central Pacific. Why is that important? It therefore determines where the ridge and trough will set up later down the road further north. And another thing that I want to point out, probably more crucial for us here in Europe and the UK, is the very nice tripole of warm, cold, warm. And when you've got the warmest waters north of the UK and north of Iceland, as we push into the cold season, that can tend to lead to positive heights, stronger than normal heights in the high latitude region, which of course, if you know your weather, that leads quite often to colder weather, the troughiness, negative heights underneath that blocky setup that was seen in 2009 and 10. And of course, I'm making a big comparison, a big deal out of the similarity between 2015 and 2009 is because we know what kind of winter we had back then. But it's a very interesting sea surface temperature profile. This, by the way, was November, the end of November 2009. And although it's not exactly the same, let's flip back, look at the North Atlantic during the current period and look at what it was like in late November 09. Warmest water, cool, warm. So you've got that classic tripole of warm, cool, warm. You've also got the warmest waters in the El Nino region shifting westwards. Very, very crucial indeed. As for the month of November overall, I think we are going to see a flip. We're going to see positive heights over much of Europe. We're going to see the trough return from the North Atlantic into the UK, keeping systems coming into the UK and Ireland, bringing wetter conditions. And it was several years ago, Joe Bastardi said, where you see the wettest conditions during the late autumn season, that can often be a telltale sign of where the atmosphere wants to put that cold trough during the winter season. So I'm very much in reminding of that type of setup. Warm temperatures for the month of November over the continent. I do think this will be the case. We'll have kind of neutral temperatures over the UK and Ireland. The cooler staying to the west. So overall, this looks and makes sense. By the way, this is the Canadian model. So let's go back to the 500 millibar heights. Trough extended from Atlantic into the UK and Northwest Europe. Ridge underneath extending into Eastern Europe. And of course, you've got the warmth following suit underneath that. Precipitation wise, it's drier across the Mediterranean. That's the big flip compared to what we've got now. But notice where the wettest conditions are for the month of November over the UK, over Ireland, and the northwest of Europe. So let's keep an eye on this pattern overall. If you don't already, sign up to markvoganweather.com for as little 69 pence, and you will get full access to not just the UK and Europe weather with a daily written post and video, but you'll also get the United States content as well. So, winter forecast coming out November 1st. This is Sunday, a weekend Sunday that is, and lots of exciting things coming up right here on the website. So stay tuned and do sign up if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.